So, are you trying really hard to control how others treat you, or maybe control how they feel about you, their perception of you? Or maybe you're trying hard to reach a goal, but the harder you try, the further away it seems to get, and the harder the process seems to become. Well, today I'm going to explain why letting go of control of everything that is not you is actually the key to having exactly what you want. And I'm going to give you 3 specific steps that you can take today to start shifting this mental process in your head so that you can actually feel freer and lighter. If you're new here, I'm Ketra Thompson, and I'm a certified master hypnotist and a life recovery coach. So what I do is I help my clients remove the unwanted behaviors in their life or the patterns or the relationship issues by going back on a subconscious level and allowing them to reframe their core belief system on that subconscious level so that they can create a huge change in their life and a lot of traction moving forward. So if you'd like to learn more, check out the link in the description below. You can visit my website, it gives you all the information. There's a free hypnosis download there. And you can also set up a completely free complimentary consultation call so that we can talk a little bit. I can get to the root of what's going on with you. I can ask some questions and help you get some clarity. And then we can decide if we're a good fit to work together. So you'll want to check that out. And I also want to mention before we get started, I appreciate it if you'd click like and subscribe so you can be notified every time I post a new video. So when we're talking about control, a lot of times we think about the controlling narcissistic type of person, but the rest of us are also using control, and we probably don't even realize it. I know I didn't. I spent really most of my life being very perfectionistic, especially in my childhood, youth, and young adult years, really perfectionistic. And at the end of the day, that perfectionism was not only not healthy for me, but it was also about control. Controlling the perception that other people had of me. And so while we do that, we control what other people think of us, or we try to, we also have a lot of tendencies to control things outside of ourselves. So you can probably relate to the feeling of being like a little kid and someone tells you you have to do something, you have to do it just this way and right now, and everything in you just wants to go the other direction. It just wants to completely rebel against that. So it's good to remember that, because when we're dealing with people in our world, people that are close to us, if we're trying to control them, we're actually doing this to them. We're creating this energetic dynamic where their brain wants to rebel. And I personally spent most of my childhood and teen years flip-flopping between the two. And this is how our upbringing can really shape and mess up the way we think in the future. So we definitely don't want to be doing this to our kids, but most of us have experienced this. So I spent all of this time trying to jump through the hoops that I thought were expected of me so that I could get the approval of my caregivers and society. And the problem is I was simultaneously rebelling. So here I was doing well in certain areas, focusing in on what I was going to do for college and what I was doing in school. And then I was rebelling by going out, partying, and not really living in an authentic way to me. Because had I really been authentic, even in high school, I wouldn't have been focused on this going out popularity thing. The reality was I was kind of a nerd inside. Like, I loved knowledge, I loved to read, I loved to learn new things. I wasn't being authentic to myself. I was doing what the world expected of me in 2 different realms and also simultaneously rebelling. And so it creates a lot of internal conflict. And a lot of people are living their life that way even as adults. So let's look at this in the context of maybe a toxic relationship. Someone is really bullying, critical of you, withholding of affection, manipulative, switching things around, and you are trying over and over and over to explain yourself, to over-explain, to over-function, to choose your words carefully, to choose your timing carefully in order to control the other person's response to you, control their outbursts, control their judgment, and manage the whole situation. First of all, when you're doing that, you're over functioning in every capacity. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't share how you're feeling, but there's a specific way to do that so that you can have taken the time to reflect on what's going on inside of you, express how you're feeling, and then express a request for changed behavior. Because the only thing you can do is basically quit bitching about it and make an actual request so that you can gather information. Then you can say, okay, did they take that seriously? Did they hear my heart? Were they curious about what I was sharing? And ultimately, is there changed behavior to back it up? So you're kind of being like a detective that steps back and observes and watches. And it's really hard to do when you're tied up into a relationship that there's so much emotional involvement, but it's just one example of letting go of control. Not letting go of your responsibility to communicate, but knowing what the difference is between clear, concise communication and request and over-functioning and over-communicating. Because the reality is that there are some serious things that aren't happening within you when you are trying to control the people around you. I'm not saying ignore everyone's bad behavior and stay in a toxic situation and don't do anything about it. What I'm saying is that you have to find a way to tune into what's going on inside of you and why you're doing this. So I want to give you one more example in regard to my kids. So I was both a pretty strict parent when they were young and also a super loving, nurturing parent. And I really think you can't have one without some of the other, because you don't want to be your kid's friend, but they really, really need a lot of love and nurturing. And so that benefited me in a lot of ways in years later, but I still made some major mistakes. I had still tried to control their path, control their faith, control their view. And I did it by really inserting myself into their situations and really telling them, why this needed to be a certain way. And as they grew and as I grew, as I deconstructed my faith, as I educated myself on complex trauma, as I did the work that I'm doing and really worked on myself, I started to let go. I started to let go of that control when I realized their journey is their journey. And just like someone who's enabling an alcoholic is not keeping them from hitting rock bottom, they keep kind of giving them what they need, bailing them out, giving them money, whatever. When we don't let our children or other people experience the consequences of their life choices, then we're robbing them of their human experience. We're robbing them of their journey. Because the reality is that they learn far more from their mistakes than they're ever going to learn from their successes. I know I have. And that seems to be the experience with all of my clients. These things we go through that we don't like shape us into who we become. They give us the wisdom. They give us the empathy if we're willing to be introspective about it and learn from it. And so I didn't want to rob my kids from their own experience of life. It's their journey. It's not mine. I am just lucky enough to be a part of it. So of course, I tell my kids my input when it's welcomed, but never in a pushy way anymore. And there's so many examples of, especially my oldest son, who, you make all your mistakes with your oldest ones, right? As an adult, came back to me and told me things that I did or schools I chose to put him in that caused resentment in him and all of these things as an adult. And I was finally at a place where I could say, even though that was not my intention at the time, I can see that hurt you. And I'm so sorry that hurt you. You have every right to feel the way you feel. And you can almost see it just melt off of him. that he didn't have to hold the resentment anymore. And it's created a dynamic where my adult children can now come to me and talk about anything. There's nothing off limits. Politics, sex, religion, relationships, work, college, whatever it is, because I'm not going to force them down my path or down a path that I think is best for them. I'm going to allow them their journey and offer my wisdom when they want it. And this kind of letting go of control can happen in big ways, and it can also happen in some really small micro ways in the world, so that you can finally let go of everything that's weighing you down and actually create momentum moving forward. So I want to tell you what you can do to do this for yourself, to implement this change of perspective. So most of us don't even know that we're doing this. We're complaining about the drivers on the street. We're complaining about the weather. We're complaining about how things don't go our way at work. We're focusing on the negative, and this is also a form of control. We're letting our attention be put in the direction of this negativity, and we're actually reinforcing a negative neural pathway in our brain that creates this really smooth transition. It's like when we reinforce a neural pathway, it becomes the superhighway of our brain. Our thoughts just flow down that path really easily because it's just quick and smooth and paved. And so the more we do it, the more we fly down that path. What we want to do is we want to interrupt that process. So when we catch ourselves bringing up negativity that isn't productive, that we aren't going to do anything about, or that we can't do anything about, or trying to control how other people are in order to make ourselves happy in the moment, we want to grab that thought and we want to redirect it. Now, redirecting a thought doesn't mean jumping from negativity all the way to positivity. It means shifting it to something in the present moment that is not emotionally charged, that you can actually just focus on the sky, the clouds, little things you can be grateful for, how comfy your bed is, how soft your clothes are, whatever it is. So you can just shift away from that. And the more you shift away from the negative path, the less paved and smooth that path becomes. So it's really important to have this awareness of what's going on in your mind and what's happening when you're looping into negativity, or you're trying to overfunction in an attempt to control everyone around you, which really, in the end, is about controlling how you feel. You don't want to feel a certain way, and so you're going to manage their behavior in order to control how you feel. So, what you can do about it. When this frustration arises, I want you to ask yourself, what am I trying to control? Where is the control in this? When there's frustration, there's usually control. So if you can pinpoint that I'm trying to control something, even this narrative in my mind, even with traffic really, if you're complaining about traffic, are you really controlling it? No, but you somewhere in your brain think that you're gonna control it if you can complain about it enough, right? Where am I trying to control? Especially in a relationship dynamic. What am I trying to accomplish and what am I trying to control? So ask yourself that. The second question you wanna ask yourself is, what am I protecting myself from? Now, in a toxic relationship, it's usually I'm trying to protect myself from their explosive, unpredictable behavior and what that does to me, which triggers all these things in me, creates belief systems in me, hurts my feelings, because you're caring about what they think about you so much. You're putting your worth almost in their hands. So you're trying to protect yourself. And even in the kid situation, I'm trying to protect my kid from pain, but ultimately it's so I'm not in pain when they're in pain. So it's ultimately a self-protection. So what am I trying to protect myself from is the second question. And the third is, ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? What would help me feel better in this moment? Would it be a hug from someone? Would it be a nap? Would it be some deep breathing? Would it be a friend to talk to? Do I need to get outside? There's always a need underneath that you have that you might not be meeting for yourself. And so that need can also translate into a boundary. So especially in a toxic relationship, what am I needing in this moment? To not be in this toxic soup. I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to leave the scenario. I'm going to go get that coffee and take a breath of fresh air. I'm going to go give myself what I actually need. And that's really important, because when we're outward focused, we're focusing on controlling everything outside of us, and we're doing it to the detriment of our inner needs. What do we need that we are not giving ourselves, that we're denying ourselves because we are being externally focused and not internally focused? That is huge. Most of us never take the time to stop and say, what do I need? What do I want? What do I desire? And then start formulating a plan to actually meet that need for yourself without trying to control the people around you. Doesn't mean you don't express needs to them. What it means is, regardless of whether or not they decide to reciprocate or meet that need, you're going to find a way to meet that need for yourself. And that might be leaving a relationship, or changing the dynamic of it, or implementing boundaries, or looking for that new job. But it's when you stop bitching about it and actually ask yourself what you need, because there's something you need, and you can start making a plan to move in the direction of what you need. Meeting your own needs is really, really important, and there's a lot of things that stop us from doing this. A lot of the time, it's our subconscious programming. We have beliefs that have been in our mind for so long that they are running the show. Our subconscious mind is driving over 95% of everything we think, feel, and do. And so when we're trying to break this pattern with our willpower, which doesn't have a lot of strength or bandwidth, we just get exhausted. So if you really want to make a huge amount of traction and actually reframe these beliefs that are driving the unwanted behaviors, the patterns, the feelings, the broken relationships, the dissatisfaction with work, that feeling of purposelessness, the anxiety, if you want to really change it on a subconscious level, then of course I recommend a custom hypnotherapy process. And I do this with my clients every day. I have had clients that have read all the books, that knew all the things, that understood the why behind their feeling, understood their complex trauma even, and still didn't feel better. The difference with hypnotherapy is that once you reframe this subconsciously, you feel better. It's like going back, like in a movie, how they go back in time and they change one little thing and it changes everything on all the other timelines. Because once that happens and your younger self understands the truth and can relax and allow, now every other version of you moving forward can do that as well. You have a new operating system, a new way to function, and a new way to just let go. Letting go is one of the most freeing things you can do, and it's one of the most frustrating processes when you're trying to do it and all of these old negative beliefs keep coming up and stopping you. I remember years and years ago when my ex-husband had lost his job and I had my kids in private school and I was going back to work and I was trying to juggle and keep all of these things afloat and just save everything and keep everything the same and keep the status quo. I was going crazy, and when I finally just let go, I let go of all of it. I pulled my kids from private school and put them in public school. I let go of trying to hang on to the house and rented it out and all of these things. I felt so much better. It was just a huge weight off, and that isn't a big kind of dramatic scenario. But if you can do this in micro ways every day, where you let go of things that aren't yours to carry. Some things are yours to carry, and some things are not. And it does boil down to some level of trust. For everyone, that looks different. But a level of trust in your creator, a level of trust in something bigger, a level of trust that the universe is working things out for your good. So you don't have to try to push back anymore. You can let go. And it also is part of learning how to receive. If we're trying to control, we aren't open to receiving. We aren't even open to noticing the opportunities to receive and connect and create flow in our life. And flow is really important. You know, athletes get into this flow state where they're not trying so hard, but they're just functioning really well. And that's where you want to be in your life. So again, if you'd like some help to create momentum and actually address the issues that are driving your unwanted patterns in your life, set up that consultation call. I'd love to chat with you, help you get some clarity, and really see if this is a good process for you, because I know how impactful it's been in my life, and I watch it be impactful in the lives of my clients every single day. So, one more time, a recap. 3 things to do when you notice this. You're going to ask yourself, what am I trying to control? What am I protecting myself from? And what do I need in this moment to to help me feel better, and how can I meet that need? So until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.